Hey guys, it's Ian from the Auto Barn VW, and today we're going to do a side-by-side on the old 2024 Tiguan and the new 2025 Tiguan. So to make everything fair in this comparison, I have an SE model for the 24 as well as an SE model for the 25. And so in this comparison, we're going to obviously look at the exterior differences, the interior differences, new tech, new bells and whistles, and then we'll do a little test drive just to see the different feel of these vehicles. So one important detail about these two vehicles is that this one right here is just a teeny bit shorter. I think it's roughly about 1 inch shorter, but that doesn't actually impact the interior space of this vehicle because it was only taken off the rear overhang, meaning essentially there's one less inch or two of the rear bumper right here. So there might actually be more room on this interior than this one, even though it is slightly a smaller vehicle. The second thing I want to add is that this vehicle is actually 70 pounds lighter, as well as has 17 more horsepower. And that might not sound like a lot. 70 pounds does not sound like a lot, but let me put this in perspective. For example, when I drive my old vehicle, it's about a few thousand pounds. And I start driving on an empty tank of gas. And then once I put about 10 gallons in my car, I can noticeably feel a difference in how it drives and everything about it. Imagine this is 70 pounds lighter, but also has 17 more horsepower. That, like I said again, that doesn't sound like a lot, but that is a lot, and it will add a lot to the feel of this vehicle. So when it comes to the exterior, you can see that this 24 model has a lot more curves to it. It might not look too curvy from this angle because it's not really a curvy vehicle in general, but we can take this area right next to the wheel well, for example. You can see how it's almost a half circle. Whereas if we were to go to this wheel well right here, you can see it's much more boxy. It's less of a circle and more like a, half a square with rounded edges. And even just looking at the front grille, you can see how much more boxy it is there. It almost looks like it's smiling at us, right? Another thing is that you can see there's a lot more chrome used on this front grille on the SE model versus on the 24 model, versus this one. Let me also add that there is an illuminated light bar right here, illuminated logo, whereas this model does not have the same thing, even on the same trim. Moving over to the wheels, these wheels are 19-inch wheels. And let me just say this, I love how these wheels look. Sometimes I'm not a big fan of how VW styles the wheels, but right here I think this is perfect. Whereas on this vehicle right here, the 24, we have 18-inch wheels right there. Another interesting thing goes to the headlights. Both of these vehicles have daylight running lights standard, obviously, right? And they have automatic headlights as well, standard, right? But these ones have adaptive lighting too, which includes cornering lighting, which means as you turn the wheel or you're making a corner, the light as well swivels a little bit to the right or to the left so that you can really clearly see where you're turning into. So on the 24, you can see that has privacy glass. Same thing can be said about the 25 as well. But one big difference, you probably haven't seen it yet, is that this vehicle has keyless access, and it's not in the same way as this 24 model looks, where it's a button, see, where it's just more like a divot. Personally, I like both options, but I know a lot of my coworkers say this looks much more premium and whatnot. Both of these vehicles have heated and power folding side mirrors, which is still good to continue having. As you can see on the rear of the new Tiguan, we have this rear light bar with the illuminated logo. It's not lit up right now because it's not nighttime, but if we go to the back of the 24 Tiguan, we do not have that, nor does the logo illuminate. Before we do a deep look at the difference in interiors, I do want to point out the difference between the 25 key fob and the 24 key fob. As you can see, both these models do come with a remote start, as you can see right here and right here. But in terms of feel in hand, this new key is much heavier, much more luxurious feeling, a lot of that stuff. And this one, to be completely frank, it's made out of plastic, so you don't really get that same feeling. And for the 24 models, all of the keys were like this. It wasn't just the lower trims or the middle trims like that one we're looking at right now. It was all of them, whereas this type of key is standard on the 25s, which is amazing. So before we go into the interior of the 24 model, I realized while after recording the interior of the 25 that it makes a lot more sense to kind of go over the features on this 24 and then kind of hint at what you're going to see in the 25. So in terms of watching the video, it'll be a lot easier to understand. So right now what I'm going to do is I'm going to talk about the features that I see a huge difference in when it comes to the 24 versus the 25, and then I'll edit it so that the interior of the 25 comes after. So keep that in mind. First things first, we have this door trim, right? It goes along this trim on the right side of the dash and on the left, or on the passenger door, but it's not on the rear doors though. One big difference when it comes to the 25 model is that they have a very sporty looking trim that goes along the entirety of the door, entirety of the dash, whether it's the left side or the right side, on the passenger door and the rear doors. It's incredible. Another difference is you'll see there's a difference in material they use for the door in these soft areas. They use a much softer leather. I'm not sure exactly what's the exact name of it, but it feels amazing. It's nice. One big difference is that they don't have this kind of carpeted cup holder, which I think is a huge upgrade. If you spill anything in here, it's gonna be there forever. When it comes to this lumbar support, you'll see on the new 25 one that there's actually additional controls when it comes to this for more control of how the seating feels. Additionally, when it comes to the seating, you'll see that the new seats are much more sport focused, to where they hug you in a much more, I guess, engaging way. Mind you, these seats are very nice. Like I mentioned already, they won't allow you to be thrown into the passenger seat if you make a tight turn or anything like that. But nevertheless, the new ones are better. Moving on to the interior. One big difference is that you'll see that the digital cockpit versus the infotainment on the 24 model is staggered, whereas on the 25, they run parallel, and you'll get a good look at that. Whereas also, you'll notice on some of the higher trim when it comes to the 24, not on this vehicle in particular, they had touch control buttons on the steering wheel, and you can see it was kind of along these lines right here where they would light up at night and whatnot. People did not like those very much. Some people had issues. Some people said they weren't responsive in the way they needed them to be. However, I never had any problems with them at all. But, you know, VW has to listen to their customer base and make decisions for themselves. So they decided to take them off. And so you'll see the same, essentially the same looking steering wheel on this model as on the new model. One big difference is you'll see this area is a little bit more freed up on the new vehicle, whereas there's a lot more space in this area right here. It's gonna look a lot different, and you'll see what I mean. Another huge difference is this little driving mode shifter, where you would just turn the dial like this. It's very similar, but upgraded is what I'll say. They still have the wireless charger, they still have the auto dimming mirror, and of course the massive panoramic sunroof. But what I will say is, for whatever reason, on the 25 model, the panoramic sunroof feels a little bit bigger, even though I really checked and it's not bigger. So to finally take a look at the 25's interior, this is probably the best part of the vehicle. For example, we have this suede feeling leather on this door, as well as this nice sporty trim. And it's not only on the two front doors, but it's along the entirety of the dashboard. And same thing with this suede feeling trim, along with this silver trim. But it's not only these front two doors, because the back two doors also have this kind of suede and this soft leather feeling, as long as the sporty trim right there as well. Now looking at the seats, these seats are extremely nice, especially for sporty driving cars, right? Because they hug you and they keep you in place when you're making a tight turn and whatnot. As well as you continue to have more of this suede and the perforated leather and this nice kind of rich design. We also have a lot more control when it comes to the lumbar stuff, where you have 4 different directions, and also that right there. And like I already mentioned, this trim goes along the entirety of the dashboard, the sporty trim with the silver stuff as well. And in comparison to the last model year, instead of having a staggered infotainment and driver cockpit, now they're both parallel and look incredibly nice while driving. Like I already mentioned, we have the kind of suede thing right here. We have, instead of the volume dial being right here, and as well as the driver mode, now they kind of combine them into this, and we'll kind of go a little bit more into that a little bit later on in the video, but you'll kind of see what I mean. We have the wireless charger right here with the USB ports, the little center console right there, and as you can see, these seats look amazing in the rear. First thing I'll look at when it comes to the interiors of these vehicles is the trunk. And so this is what the 25 looks like. Like I mentioned earlier, the 25 is a little bit smaller in terms of length, but like I also mentioned, is that this vehicle also has a lot more interior room. Not a lot more, but it has more. As you can see right here, these vehicles still come with the spare tire and the kits, as well as little cubbies right here to where you can store stuff, as well as right here. You can also fold the seats down right here as well on the new ones. And they still have the power liftgate button, which you can also adjust in terms of position memory. Now to head over to the 24 model, you can see that we have roughly the same room. Nothing that you probably would be able to notice right off the bat in terms of difference in space, but you will notice that there is no little cubby where you can kind of have it like right here in the same way there was on this one. What you do have though is these two little cubbies right here, and once again the spare tire with the jack as well. So first things first, now that we're back in the new Tiguan, now that you've seen basically all the differences in appearance and the interior, let me show you a lot of the differences when it comes to the tech. So like I mentioned, the steering wheel is basically exactly the same. But a huge difference, like I already mentioned, is the shifter right here, where you go, if you shift forward, twist in front, now you're in sport mode. Shift back one to neutral, go to reverse like that, and we have the backup camera with the parking sensors as well, which is always amazing. You can change the view like that. Extremely easy to use. If you want to go to park, you press this button on the side. One thing I'll also mention is how sporty this interior looks like, especially with the infotainment and the digital cockpit running parallel to each other. Another thing is you can change the volume with this dial right here, so you don't lose out on any of the dials that you had on the previous vehicle. It's just that they work a little bit differently. And so if you push the screen in a little bit, you can change the different driving atmospheres. So as you can see, it changes the color. And so it doesn't just change the color, but it changes how the vehicle sounds in terms of its audio controls. It'll change the preset, and you can actually find a custom mode for that as well. So you press down again, and if you want to change the driving mode, you swipe to the left, and now you can change between eco, comfort, sport, custom, off-road, snow. Same modes as previously, but in a different place, and in my opinion, a little bit better. We have the wireless charger right here, as well as the two USB-Cs, this little storage area in the center console, and it's a big storage console, so it's not small. Going to the home screen, you can look at all the apps like this normally, but they made this infotainment a little bit more easy to use than the previous model, and even some of the 25 models like the Atlas and all that stuff, where you can have these shortcuts like the music, like the phone, the navigation, the auto start and stop, since it's no longer a button on the vehicle. And then also some of the vehicle favorites. So for example, if you wanted to change some of the ESC settings previously on this vehicle, it would be a little bit harder to navigate while driving, whereas you can turn it off and on while you're driving, and it's much easier. Outside of that, there's nothing really left to go over in terms of these two vehicles outside of giving these two cars a test drive. So we'll start off with the 24, and then we'll go to the 25. Be right back. So now that we're driving the 24 right now, I have it in sport mode just because the new 25 is a little bit more performance oriented, so you guys can kind of see a good comparison, since this one is a little bit heavier and slower by comparison. So first things first, we'll do a little straight line pull. Obviously not too much, but see, I gave it a hard pull for about a second or two, just so you can see. See, okay. That'd be a kind of good example of how this one drives. And now we'll do the 25 real quick. So for the sake of example, we're gonna have this car in sport mode as well. And we're gonna take it on a quick lap around my lot real quick. You can see that's my coworker saying hi to me. And we gotta put it in park real quick. I will say, like, I'm not even just making this up, but even right off the bat, this vehicle, even though it is lighter, it does feel more solid and on the ground than the previous vehicle. So I feel like it has a little bit more control in terms of like the output you get when you put your foot on the gas. I think the 24 was less maybe balanced, you might say, with that. A little bit less controllable. Not in a bad way, because that can be fun sometimes, but relative to, you know, smooth driving, I think this one is a little bit better. Now to kind of give it a quick pull, we'll do that real quick. You can even hear the difference in that. See, my seat was back a little bit, so I wasn't able to. Ooh, okay, that is definitely there definitely is a big difference in that. That just put a smile on my face. Anyways, I'm not gonna do too much of that because that's how I get fired. But to conclude the video on the side-by-side between the 24 and the 25, there really is nothing to conclude. You guys saw all of the amazing things when it comes to the new 25 and how much better it is than the 24. And that's not to say that the 24 is a bad vehicle, but what it is to say is the 25 has so much that you would be thinking it's competing with BMW or Audi or any other company along that line, but in reality, it's not. This vehicle is meant to be priced competitively with vehicles like the CR-V or the RAV4 or other vehicles along that line in the compact SUV segment. And it has all of these amazing things like this touchscreen, like this amazing trim, like the silver trim, like this leather that goes along the entire dashboard. Or while you're driving, you have these seats that hug you and give you amazing lumbar support. There's really no way that any of these cars on the market can compare with this, especially when it has the same price point as them. And that being said, you know, these vehicles are obviously for sale at the moment. I'm gonna have all the information for them in the description, but I'm also gonna have my contact information right here and right here, where you can email me or call me if you have any questions. And don't think this is me saying that the 24 model is a bad car. No, it's just that the 25 is just such a good car that it just doesn't compare. So anyways, please like, please subscribe. I hope you guys enjoyed this video and you guys learned something. But anyways, have a nice one. Bye.